Now I want to take a whole video just talking about what a capo is and why you might want to get one, and the advantages that it has not only for learning guitar, but of course playing more songs. In America, you guys call this a capo. That's absolutely fine and correct. And this is the capo or capo that I have and I recommend. It's my branded one. We currently still sell these. We might sell out in the future, but this is a trigger-type capo, which means that it can fit on as easy as that, and then we can play the same chords, shapes that we know already, but we can play more chords. Now, why is that an advantage? Well, some songs, as a fact, just use a capo, and there's no other way to get the sound of the original recording and play along to the original recording than using a capo. Wonderwall, for example. I won't play it for copyright reasons, but it begins with this chord, and there's no real other way to do this along with the rest of the song than to use a capo at the 2nd fret. That's what Noel Gallagher does. Hotel California starts with an E minor chord, but with a capo or a capo at the 7th fret. And straight away we have that kind of Hotel California sound. You could play that with other ways of doing a chord. We do later on in the intermediate program look at how we can do this shape without a capo and do this thing, but that's not how this song's played. It's played with capo 7th fret and other capo options are available as well. Final one that's probably very iconic is capo 5th fret and a G chord is the Hallelujah sound, or the way that Jeff Buckley played the wonderful song Hallelujah, again with these kind of chords that we'll be looking at later in this course. The other thing a capo gives us is many easier options to play songs that we couldn't play unless we learned bar chords or higher level chords. For example, we've learned how to play the E major and A major chords, and there are many songs we can play with those two chords, but we might need a capo at the 2nd fret or the 3rd fret, for example. And we could play E major and A major shapes, but make them sound like a G or a C, or even a F sharp and a B major chord. Finally, a huge advantage is that not only does a capo lower your strings, typically making a guitar much easier to play, especially beginner guitars which might have quite high action, so the strings quite high off the fretboard. The frets are also closer together the further up the fretboard the capo is. If I'm to play an E major chord here, that will be easier for a lot of people than it will be in the open position. Even moving a capo to the 2nd or the 3rd fret holds down the strings a little closer to the fretboard, sets up a guitar for optimum playing in many cases, and means that the frets are closer together so that the D major chord or the E major chord may be easier. What that can mean is occasionally a chord can be harder to play, like if the capo is really high, like 7th fret, and then we're trying to fit in for an A chord, this can be harder. And that's where the 1-finger A option that we looked at earlier in this program can be a real option for a lot of people. Maybe the 3 in a line is easier here than this one. It is entirely personal preference, but also dictated by where you happen to be, what you happen to be playing. So trigger types are the one that I recommend. The song will always dictate where the capo is for the time being, but we will be using these throughout this course just occasionally to get you accustomed to doing it along to the jam tracks, etc. Links to this one, while it's still available, will be in the description below this video, but also many other capos are available, and it is very much personal preference and budget preference as to why you would go for one or another. I really recommend trigger types though, because they typically fit the quickest and give you optimum amount of pressure on your fretboard to let the strings ring out, which is all we're hoping for it to do.